It's nice when you find yourself in something that looks good without breaking the bank. This jacket, for example, $20 from the op shop, and even though it's not Italian, the value for money is pretty hard to deny. So this then, the Mazda CX-30 GT SP, has been my car for the last 3 months, and while you'd be pretty hard pressed to find one for $20, it's certainly something that looks good without breaking the bank. In fact, I've recommended the CX-30 to mates before, and the suggestion's been pretty well received, based entirely on the way it looks. But this, the GT SP, is a new variant for 2024, and it's starting to get into the pricier end of the CX-30 range. So is it worth paying nearly 45 grand for a small SUV like this when there are Euro rivals within a couple of grand's reach? Gather round and let me tell you what I've learned with this car over the last 3 months. $44,340. That's how much, before on roads, it'd cost to snag you a CX-30 GT SP. In the few $1,000s above it, up to about 50 grand, there's rivals like the Lexus UX, the Audi Q2, and even Hyundai's Kona N, which has like 206 kilowatts. While those European rivals are all base models, this thing's far from it. It's got features you'd be paying a few grand to option in one of those cars, things like burgundy red leather heated seats, a heated steering wheel, it's even got a sunroof, and it's got a 10.25-inch screen that's otherwise only standard in the top spec Astina. For a little more, at $45,640 all up, you can have the GT SP with the Vision Technology Pack, which adds a surround view parking monitor, driver monitoring, front cross traffic alert, plus cruising and traffic support. As an aside, the CX-30 is also covered by Mazda's 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty and comes with 5 years of roadside assist, plus 5 years of capped price servicing. It's all very plush really, but you can get some of those features in rivals like the Kona or the Nissan Qashqai. So it's a good thing then that the Mazda CX-30 stands out in terms of its style. To some of you, I might look like I'm not even as old as the platform on which this video was uploaded, but I was actually one of the first journos to drive the new Mazda 3 back when it arrived in Australia with Mazda's new design language. And what a revelation that was. Gone are the days of those old Mazda 3s with P-plates and those weird little angel and devil stickers around the badge, and I can say that my housemate has one. The CX-30's carried that on, and it looks really good. Mazda's now rubbed shoulders with the likes of BMW and Audi on the road, and I think in this case even look a little bit better. This colour, for example, Mazda's Soul Crystal Red, is actually my favourite factory new car colour. It grabs the light really well, it looks alluring in the dark, and on this car it contrasts really well with that chromy brightwork at the front, which is something I don't even normally like on a new car. Overall, it looks less like a small SUV and more like a big hatchback, which is something I'm a fan of. The sloping roofline at the back of it helps there for sure, but things like clean body panels that are devoid of busy little design elements, as well as its sleek lights, all add to the look. The GT SP specifically gets these black 18-inch alloy wheels, a black grille, and black mirror caps, all intended to look a little bit sporty as well. But I reckon it's inside where the CX-30 really impresses. Pay attention here because, to be honest, this is where you're going to spend most of your time, in the driver's seat. And dare I say it, it feels kind of premium in here. The leather in the interior feels and looks kind of nice, especially when it's not too hot. Plus, if it's the opposite and it's a little bit chilly, having the heated seats and the heated steering wheel is quite lovely. Having the sunroof up here as well, opening that up on the way home from work on an afternoon is a nice little liberating feeling as well. It's one of those things that makes the top spec CX-30s just that little bit nicer. It's also nice having the larger 10.25-inch screen up here for the multimedia instead of the smaller, older 8-inch version. It's actually really slick and simple. It's very user-friendly. In fact, I used to think BMW had the best combination of usability with the hardware and the software for its multimedia, but I think Mazda might have overtaken it. The little scroll wheel here in the middle does take a moment to get used to, but once you're used to it, it's pretty intuitive to use and it feels nice in your hands when you click it around the side. It's got sort of a plastic metal style knurl around the edge that's pretty good. You can use it to click side to side and it moves different sections of the menus that you're in, but there's not too many sub-menus either to distract you from anything while you're driving. If you don't like Mazda's native system for the multimedia as well, you can bypass it with Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, which is a good combination with the wireless phone charger down here in the middle to stop your phone from draining its battery if you're using phone mirroring. Speaking of simple, the buttons here on the steering wheel, as well as the controls for the climate over here, all strike that nice balance of sleek and easy to use as well. Plus, it's really nice to not need to use this screen for anything other than a little bit of multimedia and navigation. Also, the climate control dials, the ones that actually control the temperature, look and feel really nice. I just want buttons that feel like real buttons, you know? Water bottles and cups sit nicely out of the way here in the cup holders. My water bottle's quite tall and it still has space here under the dash as well. If you want to tuck your phone away, the wireless charger's behind those as well, so it's nice and out of the way, not a distraction. Plus, if you want to tuck your phone even further away, the USB-C and 12-volt ports are in the center bin here, so you won't even see your phone while you're driving. The front seats too are pretty easy to find a comfy position to sit in. The driver's side is electrically adjustable, plus I don't feel restricted by space or anything sitting here. The front seats are actually pretty roomy. And finally, from the front seats here, the touch points are actually really nice. There's a nice little soft spot to lean your elbow on either side of you, and they're not too far to lean either way. The steering wheel has a really nice grip feeling at 9 and 3, which is where you should be holding your hands. Plus, everything still just looks nice. It strikes that nice balance of sleek, style, and simplicity really well. Back here in the second row, behind my own seating position, things are maybe a little bit less interesting, stylish, and sleek, but mercifully not too cramped. I have plenty of leg room, I've got knee room, I've even got foot room, and the sloping roofline doesn't do a lot to damage the amount of headroom that I've got as well. It does lack a couple of things. There's no USB ports back here, although the fact that they're in this central bin here means at least I can reach them if I need to. Plus, I do actually have a little armrest with a couple of cup holders here, plus some little rubber bits here to hold cups or bottles of different sizes without them wobbling about. I also do have 2 different directional vents here for the air conditioning, so the 2 passengers in the rear don't need to fight over who gets a blast of cold air. There's also a storage bin in the door next to me here, and I know it's anecdotal, but I did have a friend spend 2 3-hour stints in this car on a weekend trip one time, and no complaints, so if that helps tell the story, then there you go. That trip was also how I discovered that the CX-30's 317 litres of boot space, even though it's not the most for its class, the Corolla Cross has 414 for example, it's still enough to fit 3 humans and all of their camping gear and luggage for a 2-day music festival. I also checked, and with the seats folded down, you can fit a bike in there. My Peugeot road bike with a quick release front wheel actually fits in there just fine. That's right, a Peugeot in a Mazda. A Pazda? A Merjo? Up the other end is this. It's 2.5 litres of petrol-powered Mazda goodness, powering all 4 wheels with 139 kilowatts and 252 newton meters via a 6-speed auto. No hybrid, nothing fancy, just good old-fashioned petrol power. Just don't ask Mazda where the electric cars are just yet. You might be looking at this and thinking a relatively large engine in a small SUV driving all 4 wheels is probably going to be a bit thirsty. And yeah, look, you're right. Mazda claims 6.8 litres per 100 Ks in this car, and in about 2,000 Ks of fuel testing I've done with it, I've achieved 10.15 litres per 100 Ks. I reckon if Mazda was to give this thing a hybrid drivetrain, it would be golden, but that fuel figure is not amazing for a small SUV. All right, let's forget about the fuel consumption just for a little moment and live in a little bit of a fantasy world where we don't need to pay for petrol or anything like that. Driving this car is smooth. God, it's smooth. I can kind of see maybe why Mazda has kept that engine around, because as much as I berate it for looking a little bit outdated on paper, it works really well with the 6-speed auto and with the all-wheel drive to make this car fun and pretty delightful to drive. The steering's quite light, but also it's communicative. It's comfy at low speeds, but it's pretty engaging at high speeds, at the same time as not being tiresome when you're driving on the highway. The suspension is probably a little bit on the firmer side, but it's not uncomfortable and it does a pretty good job of telling you what's going on underneath the car. It makes you feel quite connected to the road and gives you a good sense of control. The car feeling a little bit connected and engaging is a welcome change in a world where it feels like some cars are becoming a little bit dynamically dull. And with the GT SP, you get some paddles for changing gears, and like most Mazdas, it's got a sport mode, which is helpful if you want to hear what the engine sounds like when it's being a bit thrashy. I'm finding that in the GT SP, I'm more likely to just use the paddles to keep the gears where I want them and make sure I've got power when I need it, rather than relying on sport mode to try and guess what I need and when. It's not a very wow kind of drive, but you do notice all the little things. Like even the soft click of the indicator is a nice subtle touch. And probably one of my favourite things about driving the CX-30 is the lack of intrusive safety tech. That's not to say it's not a safe car, 5 stars according to ANCAP, but it kind of trusts you to do everything yourself. It's safe, but not in a helicopter parent kind of way. Subtlety trumps brashness in this car, and I'm all for it. During testing with ANCAP for adult occupant protection, the CX-30 scored a very, very impressive 99%, as well as generally highly across the board. It's got 7 airbags to help out there, plus preventing things like that in the first place with AEB that works at highway speed, lane keep assist and departure alert, blind spot and rear cross traffic alert, and adaptive cruise control. Mazda has sold more than 13,000 CX-30s in the last 2 years annually. And 3 months with this thing has helped me realise why. It looks good, it's fun to drive, and it doesn't sacrifice too much in terms of practicality for its style. Plus, I reckon if you bought a Euro rival at around the same price point, you're getting a base model and you'd probably be a bit sour that you're missing out on a lot of the goodies that this car has. Do you need the GT SP? I don't think so. Actually, pretty much every CX-30 in the range seems to have quite a good balance of features for the money you're paying. But I'll tell you what, the heated seats were pretty nice to have on some of those chilly Melbourne mornings.